translating it. Then I didn't agree with him. And then on the really contentious part, which is stiff upper lip, pretty sure that's right. That's Grauerholz, the master. So check it out. There's one on the other side that's...
Some people read the book.
I'll say right in the front is there was never any serious injuries. We had a few mishaps, but nothing of any great consequence. I shot an art piece and it exploded in a very spectacular way, and a piece of plexiglass that was part of the artwork shrapnelized and hit William in the hand, and he shrieked, "If there's no blood, there's no art!" All of the shooting trips involved copious amounts of adult beverage and smoke. I mean, the whole process of going out shooting, the fact that it involved lots of alcohol made it more exciting. That's how it really is. That really is. To my knowledge, the earliest pieces were all gun-connected pieces. But the first ones, were all shotgun and revolver art.
Scenes after the death of William Burroughs. Wayne said William Burroughs always believed a spider resided in his bedroom closet, but no one believed him. The 2 weeks after the funeral, the renter was bitten by a brown recluse spider, the kind with poison worse than rattlesnakes. This raises a paranormal question. Perhaps Bill returned as a spider during the powerful time after a death? Or another question, the spider sensed the renter was a stranger and not the old man. Or the paranoid old misanthrope was right all along, there was a spider in the closet. After he died, they found all his shamanistic paraphernalia, bundles of bones and feathers. Not unusual. When Professor Ed Drew died nearby, his relatives found Australian Aboriginal witchcraft items in a locked cabinet. A nephew had been to Australia with the professor, and he recognized which etched stones were dangerous. He disposed of the more potent killing witchcraft tools and sold the less dangerous pieces to a foundation in Virginia. The renter at Burroughs' house fears more than spiders. After the funeral, the grieving company drove to St. Louis for the burial. One of Burroughs' closest friends, skilled at verbal performance, ended up in the hearse next to the driver. Even he was muted by the driver's monologue. All 300 miles to St. Louis, he regaled passengers with graphic explication of homosexual erotic love. The hearse accelerated to 100 miles an hour, making St. Louis in record time. What do you see gallery doing these days?
The thing is, our original business plan was to have as much interaction as possible and have a high turnover of events there, and that part we've done. Now, not all of our shows are interactive, but quite a few of them have been, and so when the patrons show up, they are issued a brush or whatever and get with it.
Well, I certainly see it as a part of Burroughs' legacy.
Oh, I think you're right. Even when William was trying to market his art, and in fact, the older you get and the more you do it, the more difficult I think it can be to figure out whether you're pandering or not.
I like that one because it is not really writing. It's just his notes to himself, like a letter. But if I can find, that must be Quinn's place mark. Here we go. I've got it. All right. Here we go. Showbiz. This is from the Islam Inc. chapter. Christ, sneers the vicious, fruity old saint, applying pancake makeup from an alabaster bowl. I don't have any taking his shit off an uncircumcised cocksucker. Later he came to my dressing room and made an apology. Turns out he is a big physician, and a lovely fella too. And all them junkies sitting around in the lotus posture, spitting on the ground and waiting on the man. So Buddha says, I don't have to take this sound. I'll, by God, metabolize my own junk. What an angle.
At a rest stop near Columbia, Missouri, the funeral convoy stopped. A van of deadheads was in the parking lot trying to decide which way to turn. One of the heads happened to be reading a biography of William Burroughs. On the page where there was a photograph of Burroughs with a woman friend, as the deadhead looked up, he saw that very woman walk by. The deadhead said, "Excuse me, have you seen Burroughs lately?" She pointed to the hearse. The dead van joined the funeral procession, went to the dinner, threw dirt on the casket during burial, wept loudly. It went to the reception. At the wake, long after everyone was very drunk, the bouncer threw them out.
He says, he flips through it, he says, I can't read this, listen to this. And he just opens it up at random. Vinny, who was Towino's brother, the one who had married Maria's uncle, in one page there were like 15 characters. And they all referred back to previous pages of other characters and so on. And he tossed the book over to me and he says, maybe you can read this. I can't. People don't understand is if you have a photographic mind, it's not as simple as people think. And I just really can't, I can't expose myself to that kind of stuff. Here. He throws it. And so you were faster than me. I was about 3 seconds is a lot of dead air, but it was probably 3 seconds. Hey, what he's of course saying is I'm not in any danger. I could read this book and I won't remember any of the characters' names or anything, and so it's harmless. The insight that I've gotten about people that have that kind of steel-trap brains, the unfortunate thing about that is that you do remember everything. See, and I'm going to put you in the same category with me, Denise, is there's so many shabby moments that I've just completely forgotten about. Well, I've forgotten almost all the incidents where I put the lampshade over my head. Not having the photographic memory has its advantages in that to some degree, remembering everything is simultaneously a curse. It's all one big enchilada.
I knew him for the last couple of years of his life here in Morris, Kansas. I wasn't a confidant or a member of his inner circle, of course, I knew other writers who knew William Burroughs, so eventually I was kind of drawn into it. My strongest memories of William Burroughs, and this happened twice, I guess, is he took me in his backyard in the afternoon, just hitting me. And he had a small pond where he had some very tall papyrus, that's the papyrus growing in the backyard. And it seemed very important to him that I see this and look at it. And I think what he was trying to tell me was that life is dear. This little pond with this papyrus growing in it was very dear to him. It was very important.
Do you think you influenced Burroughs?
Maybe to his to coin a word, appellation. It was a dream he had, and then at the end of the dream, the revelation was, I opened my eyes, and there was Wayne Propst. I do know enough about how William saw planet Earth that he would recognize anybody that was around him as influencing him. I mean, anybody that would say that wasn't true would be a dope.
After interment, the photographer and other mourners lingered. Someone asked which gun Burroughs took with him to the afterworld. Before long, several comrades pulled out their heat and compared guns. They discussed a final salute, but before they could begin, the photographer who told me this story headed for the hills. Next came the problem of what to do with the house. He lived almost 15, 16 years there, the longest time he had lived anywhere in his adulthood. Who would invest in a 2-bedroom house in Lawrence with a full basement firing range? In the meantime, it was rented out, and eventually the renter trashed the place. He watched television on the Victorian sleeping couch so long that his skin merged with the fabric. While he was there, most of the original furnishings vanished, even the quirky rollabout chair that served as Burroughs' wheelchair. Then came apotheosis for the man who admired Egyptian monuments. Despite some protest that a wife killer and communist should not be celebrated, the Lawrence City Commission eventually voted unanimously to name the muddy trickle along the south edge of his house Burroughs Creek. The city paved its eastern banks with concrete blocks and put up a wooden sign, "This is immortality outside the Pharaoh's western lands."
Got up in the morning, ate breakfast, started to write. Wrote till 5 o'clock when it was time for Schmiernuts.
Dickhead?
I think so. I think of it as one word. I don't think of it as a hyphenated word.
When I'm working on my art project, that's the back side, and there's the other side.
Art. Oh man.
And what this is the show is a drawing show. This is my drawing. It's a little on the busy side. It is one of the most important processes that, in fact, the late Bill Burroughs addressed this many times, and that is, sometimes anyway, the titling, and you as a well-known poet might go along with this, and that is the titling is in some cases more important than whatever the work is. If the title is got the right grab, then you can get away with anything.
Then I would go to New York and end up being Burroughs' secretary. And people say, what was it like? And I say, compared to what? Because it's the only thing I know that I did.
I told her I might invite him.
Come down for that. Sure. Greetings. Hi. This is Naked Lunch. Now, when I wrote this 50 years ago, I had no idea that it would become a big deal. But it's fitting that we're gathered here in Paris, where it was published, right? August 1959. A few of you were born after that date. Lawrence is a place where the people who actually knew William in the last 16 years of his life are still surviving in the greatest concentration. 30 years ago, I got sick of living in New York, and William was, back on the street drugs, and it was kind of oppressive, so I said, I'm going to move the headquarters to Lawrence. And that was 30 years ago, by the hale, hearty nature of our fellowship and society had tempted him to move here from New York, and he did, and he lived here longer than he lived in any other one place, including his hometown of St. Louis. 30 years went by in the blink of an eye. I want to welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. Let the readings and so forth begin. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The first, I guess it would be a reader. First reader is also a close associate of Bill's. James McCrary spent, how long, Jim? I don't know, several years at Burroughs Communications headquarters. 31 years at Burroughs Communications headquarters. We'll go no further than that and say, let's give it up for Jim McCrary.
America is not a young land. It is old and dirty and evil. Before the settlers, before the Indians, the evil is there waiting. Mexico City, where Lupita sits like an Aztec earth goddess, doiling out little papers allowed to ship. Selling is more of a habit than using, Lupita says.
This is really entertainment value, but it's kind of an unusual thing that we put in the restored, expanded outtakes, session box set. The Death of Mel the Waiter. I remember how I happened to write this book. I had a friend, no, not a friend, a customer more like, Mel the Waiter. Every time he took a bang, I used to service him in his room, you understand. Phil isn't here, he had to go downtown, and he was in jail. Or Phil was involved in something that took him to Lexington for the cure.
He stood there in a 1920 straw hat somebody gave him, soft mendicant words falling like dead birds in the dark street. No good, no bueno, hustling myself, no glot. Come along, Friday.
Johnny's cock springs up and Mary guides it up her cunt, writhing against him in a fluid belly dance, groaning and shrieking with delight. Sweat pours down her body, hair hangs over her face in wet strands, and sucks out his eyes with a pop. They roll from one end of the room to the other, pinwheel end over end, and leap high in the air like great hooked fish. Let me hang you, Mark. Let me hang you, please, Mark. Let me hang you. Sure, baby.
He got that moniker shaking down fetishists in shoe stores. Say, give me a mark with Kentucky, and he will come back moaning for more. Let me back up. I really blew a line here because it's very important. It's the notion of give it to a mark with KY. See the difference between KY and Kentucky? In fact, Kentucky with no KY. Ouch.
Guys, I want to get a drink while I find my place. This section is titled The Atrophied Preface. Wouldn't you? And so a ticket is bought, a taxi called, a plane boarded. We are allowed a glimpse into the warm, peach-lined cave as she, the airline hostess, of course, leans over us to murmur of chewing gum, Dramamine, even Nembutal. With codeine and goofballs, cigarette holes in his bathrobe, coffee stains on the floor, smoky kerosene stove, rusty orange flame. Thank you very much.
I've tried reading Ray's work in my so-called normal voice, and I've never been very successful. I think my personal view is that, and I know this from watching Bill rehearse for performances and things like that, that the voice that he used was a very important component of the performance. And so, whether you like it or not, I'm going to eventually, I may even start out, I'll try to use my so-called normal voice, but I know that it will morph into at least my version of his voice, because in my thinking is that's how it should be. So we'll see what happens. This is from page 1.
The other thing I think he was trying to impress upon me was that with a little attention, with some care, you can get life to thrive, even in the most inhospitable environments. And perhaps Lawrence was not that hospitable to him, but yet he managed to thrive in his last years.
So that's the end. The long, thin, or something like that. But when I started to write, I barely used that idea at all.